Assignment 14 and 15 are on the same page of the book, which is page 59. So don't miss the fact that there's two different assignments here. And I want to clarify a couple of other points. Point one is while assignment 15 is a page divided in half, and you're doing part A on half of it and part B on the other half, the same is not true of assignment 14. Assignment 14 is 6 different parts, each one of them occupying half a page. If you do on the math on that, 6 times half a page equals 3 pages. I do not want all of this crammed into a single page because you will not have the room to do justice to this particular assignment. And the other thing that I want to point out for this one is that the information about this is spread out over modules 1 and 2. So you're going to need to look through the material to find the examples. The movement stuff was with the line information in the first module. You can look and see how you can create the illusion of motion from static objects if you look back to that module 1 information. This is part of why I recommend, if at all possible, that you download the module book in the big pieces that are in the course information area so that you don't have to have lots of different files open. You can have the whole thing open in 2 pieces instead of in 7. The perspective example is further back. The dominance example is further back. And if you look through here, I'm telling you that you have 6 parts to this. There's only 5 items listed: movement, perspective, dominance, value, and balance. That's because you're going to demonstrate whichever principle you found the easiest, that you liked the best, or that you just want to do twice. You're going to do it in 2 slightly different ways. So you're going to repeat one of these in a second way. All of these examples for assignment 14 are going to be done with construction paper again. So construction paper and glue stick for these guys. So you're going to take your drawing page. You're going to divide 3 sheets of it in half for assignment 14, and you're going to do an example per half of page until you have 3 pages full of these particular examples. The idea with movement, if you're trying to show movement with static objects, is going to be, in general, something is changing over the span of, quote, time, which in your case is space. You're going to show something changing about the object. To suggest movement is the object, whatever it is. If it's a rectangle, are the rectangles, plural, getting closer together? Or are they getting further apart, which is the same difference? Obviously, it just depends on which way you're thinking about. Or is something falling, and you create the illusion of falling by incrementally changing angle. It can't just go from up to down and create the sense of motion. There have to be some in-between steps. So if you look back at the examples from the book, you'll see that both of the things I've just described are shown. So I'm dividing my page in half, and I'm going to make sure that one shows up. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit, and then I'm going to start to create exactly the kinds of things we're talking about. So if I were trying to do motion, I would take my construction paper, I would cut out a shape. Mine is just going to be black right now. And if I'm trying to suggest motion, I would start out with them kind of close together. And you establish a pattern. And then eventually, after you have that pattern kind of happening, and mine are a little bit too wide for this to work really, really well, or I don't have quite enough space at the beginning. And I actually think I probably would go the other direction. I've got these so close together that it becomes a little bit difficult to adjust my spacing beyond a certain point. And so I'm going to flip-flop this in just a second. Because again, I haven't officially used my glue yet, which is the illusion that we're going with for the purposes of this conversation. And let's go with, all right, so I'm going to zoom out just a little, and these two are actually physically touching now. So can you see that you're starting to get the sense that they're moving further apart? And this is why you don't want your rectangles to be too big if you can help it, because you need the space to establish what's happening. And so this suggests a certain type of motion. By changing the gaps and increasing the space as it gets further away, you suggest that the rectangles are moving, or that you're moving relative to the rectangles, whatever. All right, so that's option number one that you can do, and it can work with any shape. It's just a little bit easier to cut out a whole bunch of rectangles. And in my case here, obviously you can see that they're all the same size. I can do the same kind of thing for the angle bit that I was talking about a second ago. So I'll establish the pattern initially. And I do think I actually just created another copy there. It's usually good to at least have, I don't know, 3 or 4 to establish sort of your everything straight and level and nothing is moving approach before you start to do the one that's a little bit different. And for the different one, it's going to be about a consistent, slight rotation to get me from here to the next one. And the spacing also is going to be changing. They're going to be getting further away at the top and closer together at the bottom. And that's one of those things that you're just going to want to cut a bunch of your shapes up, and then you start to play around with how you do your layout. And I'll do the next one. And I'm probably going to have to move it after I rotate it a little bit because it's really hard to know exactly where I'm ending up. And you don't have to end up, in other words, you don't have to demonstrate it's down. You're suggesting what's going on already without showing it fully in the down position. The brain is able to make that leap, which also, by the way, has to do with Gestalt principle, because you're filling in the blanks sort of as you go. And that was a little bit too big of a gap relative to the one that came before it. So just keep in mind, for some of this stuff, it's some small changes that you're going to want to make. And all of the ones that I'm doing right now, again, are about the sense of motion. And you can do it with fewer shapes, but I wanted you to see sort of the incremental build. All right, so top one, motion by increasing or decreasing space, depending on how you're thinking about it. Second row, change of angle for some of those objects. And so you're giving the sense that they're starting to fall or that they are falling or what have you. And I could already have one in a down position to suggest that as well. Okay, so that is the motion idea. That's one of my possible options. If I just liked doing motion, you could do motion A, motion B, and that would be one of your pages done or 2 of your 6 elements done. One of the other ones was all about size and dominance. So for size and dominance, you can do it a ton of ways. But for size and dominance, the easiest way of making that statement is to have 2 objects of vastly different sizes. There you go. Which object is more dominant? I don't think that's a hard call to come up with. Clearly, the ginormous square on the left is dominant relative to the small square on the right. There are other ways of doing it. This is certainly the simplest way. It can be any size object, and they don't have to be the same shape. It could be circle and square. Same concept holds true. All right, so that's 2 of the possible 6. I'm going to do a quick screen capture of this, and then I'm going to delete them and keep going. All right, so if it'll let me do it while I'm recording. Hopefully it will. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of these guys, but that was 2 different motions and 1 size or dominance. I didn't mean to get rid of my page divider. All right, so on to second page for assignment 14. This could be value. It could be, in this moment, I'm temporarily forgetting what the other options are. All right, we've got value, we've got perspective, and we have balance, so that we have not yet done. So value is light to dark. My suggestion for this one is do something very like you did with your value chart in assignment number 5, meaning cut out 3 or 4 or 5 or however many you want to cut out, identical shapes. I wouldn't do more than I had to, so you'll probably need a minimum of 3, but certainly 3 to 5 is a standard number of these guys. And then using your Sharpie or your pencil, use the same tool for all of them, you're going to go through and you're going to do different values. For your first set, you might do, and I'm doing this with gray, only because I'm trying to get the concept across. Actually, no, I'm going to pick, you're going to do this with your Sharpie. So, you know, if I were quickly trying to draw this out, I would do a series of lines for my first one, and it's always easier to draw on a bigger rectangle and then trim it down. So I need to select my lines and not my rectangle, and these are going to be black lines, and I've got my rectangle shape here, and this would be, for anybody that's doing the Illustrator class, an excellent time to use Shape Builder or Pathfinder to get rid of the bits that extend beyond the edge of my square that I don't need. Not that you're doing this in Illustrator, but anyway, hopefully you understand the general idea that I'm going for. And so that's my lightest value. My second one would be darker. I would take where I started from and add additional lines. So since I'm trying to show you guys pseudo live, I would draw in some extra lines for this. And of course, I'm going to have to then go back and trim them off, but hopefully that gives you an idea. So I'm getting darker with the second set. If I want to be all crosshatchy, I could add in some extra ones going in another direction, and that gives me a slightly darker value for my second one. For my third one, I would continue onward, taking what I've done for the second one and adding to it. I don't literally mean you're going to copy it like I've done, but you're going to add more lines. You're going to decrease the space that's there to get ever darker, and you're working your way toward the fourth, if you have 4, of your different shapes. And when you're finished, you're going to have a much darker overall look than you did previously. And so this is now 3-ish. And I really need to add some more because there's still way too much white there. But hopefully you're getting enough of an idea with me giving you line blobs in Illustrator. And then you would do something similar with the fourth one, adding, obviously, again, more lines as you go through there. I'm going to try one thing just to see if I can quickly, I'm going to quickly double up by way of digital chicanery since I can, and that would be my darkest one. My middle one isn't now dark enough, but hopefully it gives you a sense of where we would be heading with all of this and how we could make it work and all that kind of good stuff. So you're creating a value chart by creating the rectangles, drawing with pen or pencil into the rectangles, and then arranging them in the correct order. What you cannot do is draw them in a way similar to what I've done and then put them out of sequence and still expect it to work as a value example. And that's because if you do it that way, you're going to lose any hint of a progression. You can't go from 1 to 4. You have to do 1 2, 3, 4. And again, this will work a lot better if I can get rid of all the extra stuff here, which I don't have the time to do in the demo, but you can see it looks a little bit more appropriately rectangly now. So back to the what you don't do. You don't take this one and then take this one and then number 2 and then number 3, because that doesn't work. It's got to be in sequence. It's got to be 1, 2, 3, 4. And they can be arranged in a row. They can be arranged going back toward the upper corner. Traditionally, lightest would be in the front and darkest would be in the upper right or upper left. So long as you're consistently moving in one of those two diagonal directions, it'll work out for you. So my 1 would go here, and my 4 potentially, if it were much cleaner than it is, would go, let's say, here, and my 3 would go here-ish, and my 2 would go in between. And my arrangement is not great at the moment because I haven't taken the time to space these out, and I've got all these extra line segments, but something like this cleaned up would work nicely for a value example. The other approach that you can use, and it's fine with me if you do, sort of like the value chart that you did in assignment number 6. You can find photographs and you can cut out picture or text sections that give you light, medium, and dark, and you can arrange them in the correct sequence to give you light, medium, and dark. So you can draw the examples like I've done here, or you can cut them out of photographs, you glue them down on the page, and you show that value chart. Okay, so that's value. Perspective is the next one. And if you look at the book, I'm actually going to pause the video and I'll restart with perspective.